Okay, looks like everyone's here. So let's get started. Oh, am I not sharing? Okay. So the first one we have is App Store app install revoke licenses when pending install commands are canceled. 27, 27. Hmm. My things are out of order on this drafting board. So that would be 27393. Oh, this is something I think we need Haziel for. Is he back? Since he's the engineering DRI on this. Uh, Should we punt to the next one? Actually, the next one Ian and I have been talking about. I think I want to wait until Noah gets back so he can get eyes on this. So, hey, how's it going?
Hey,
All right, so
um,
starting with the App Store app install, revoke licenses when pending install commands are canceled. I don't believe there's any UI stuff on this, so it seems like it's most. Oh, actually, so the story is, as an IT admin, I want app licenses to be revoked when canceling a pending install, so that I can reallocate the licenses and or not pay slash use up a license fee for an uninstalled piece of software. So what's the status on this one?
yeah, actually, I guess is the engineering piece, I think I lost track of when that is actually supposed to happen. Is it supposed to happen before we come to design review, or does it happen after design review?
Well, this is one thing that I'm not well, this is the one thing that I'm not quite sure about process wise, actually, now that you bring it up. Like, so there are tickets that are like engineering focused, more or less, that don't really have design work on them. And we do have engineering DRIs right now.
Right.
So Tim, I don't know what you think on how we should approach these things. And actually, Tim and I talked about this a little bit as far as like in a ticket like this, should the engineering DRI basically be running point and pushing it through? The question then is like, does it go through design review or does it go through a different review? It seems like we have this time, so this would be a good time for people to discuss it if necessary. Um, Thoughts,
But
Tim? No,
I
or
mean,
Ian?
I think if you guys are aligned on what the expected behavior is, even if there are no UI changes, I think that's important. And if everyone's aligned there, then yeah, we can pop it right uh, into user story review, as long as all the details are in the story.
And by
So
details,
like,
you would. Oh, sorry, go
I
ahead.
guess details
oh
probably
no,
run the test plan would probably be the best place to put those in this case.
Okay, so
yeah,
look. Oh, go ahead.
Sometimes Figma is kind of our test plan in some ways.
Mhm.
But in this case, I think test plan could be everything.
Yeah, and the for the more engineering specific ones, it may be useful since whoever is engineering DRI on it is going to be specing it anyway. Of it's like, well, you might as well try and fill the spec as much as you can and remove to-dos because that's going to make user story review go quicker. Like, yeah, you don't have to do that, but that may kick up some questions that you might as well answer earlier. Um, that's something that I've tried to do on mine, where it's like, well, if I can fill in as much as I can earlier, then I don't have to do it later, and there's a little bit less time pressure between user story review and estimation, um, such that design review primarily gets used as like, hey, does this look right? Or like, hey, I have questions that I wasn't able to get answered asynchronously, rather than having basically an entire design session from scratch synchronously that could have been done async.
And
So
those
to that,
to-dos right there are typically expected to be done in in the ready for spec column. Those are
Yep.
requirements to be able to move it forward past ready for spec.
Yep.
Although to what Ian was just saying, do we want to use design review on engineering or engineering focused tickets to go through these? Or should we move it to ready spec and you would do that at ready spec? I don't know if you have a meaning for that.
I guess the question at that point is for those items in particular, um, is there a point at which design would care at all about these? If the answer is no, the answer in most cases is probably no because it's just implementation details.
Right.
Then it may be useful to work on these from the perspective of like, hey, if I think through the implementation more, then I may have questions upstream, but that's really the only reason that you would work through these in the context of design prior to user story review.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah, these
Um,
shouldn't block going to
Yeah.
user story review.
Yep.
okay. So I should move this one to, so we're comfortable moving this to user story review now? Do we know what's going on with this one?
I mean, Haziel,
Yeah,
what else were you thinking of doing on this one?
I mean, well, from an implementation, do you mean from an implementation perspective or from all of this from a
From
like design
a
process?
between now and when it hits user story review, do you feel like you need to do anything else? Because the implementation related stuff that can come after user story review as long as you think that there aren't any dragons in there that'll send it back to design.
Yeah,
And
I don't think there are. I think this one is pretty straightforward. But I guess I'm still unclear as to what the like I don't know, maybe I just didn't read something or missed something during some other call, but I'm still not sure where I'm supposed to come in as the engineering DRI and be like, hey, like, was it just like that conversation that because I think like Eugene, you tagged me in the comments here and we're like, hey, I don't think this has UI stuff. And like we chatted back and forth about a couple things.
Hmm.
Like, is that all I'm supposed to do? Or am I supposed to fill out any of the fields that are like farther up here? I'm not sure.
no, I don't think you own this ticket until after user story review.
Unless there's like API or YAML changes, which you
If there are pieces of the product portion of this that are incorrect and you catch that, then it's useful to deal with that now so that it doesn't get kicked
right,
back at user story review.
Right.
Once
right.
you hit the engineering section of this, that can be done later.
I see. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then short of like, again, like what sounds like needs to happen later, which is like writing down exactly what the implementation should be. I think this is good. I don't I don't think there's anything that is going to be weird about it from a product perspective because it's kind of a new operation, right? Like it depends on uninstalling or it depends on something we'll implement during the uninstall story and then it's just like a net new thing. So I think it's fine.
Okay, cool. And we'll figure this process out more as we go along. Like this is the first time one of these tickets has come up in our new process. So it's also
Mm-hmm.
like why I also had questions. But I also
Mm-hmm.
wonder, to Ian's point, like I wonder if some of these things, and I put this in the retro, if some tickets we might be able to actually go asynchronously all the way to user story review. I think that's like a wishful thinking, but something I was also thinking about. Because this sounds like, to your point, like we had this little back and forth. It sounded like I didn't need to do anything, and I could have just potentially just moved it to user story review without bringing it to design review. But we can
Yeah.
talk about that.
I think there's certainly tickets that could be asynced all the way through, where
Right.
it's like design review is only necessary if it's like, hey, async comms on this is not working.
Right.
Let's have a faster feedback cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm hoping that we can get to a point like that. I think that'd be awesome.
Yep.
Okay, so this is moved to user story review. This is something I wanted to chat with Noah about, I think, because I know Ian and I have been having some conversations, but I think we should probably loop in Noah on those. These window FMA tickets, did you say you want to punt these, or do we want to talk about
So
these?
these are heavy on engineering.
Yep,
They are heavy on research.
yep.
I don't think that we're going to be able to do research on this in the space of the next 19 minutes on um like Word and Excel. We know that um there's a whole ball of mud of like where we get those things, etc. And we haven't, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but Tim, I don't think you've had time to fully do the research on this.
No, I have
Okay.
not pulled this one in yet.
Um, Likewise, Edge. I guess we can talk through that quickly. Of we want to add that back in the context of patching. For auto install, it doesn't really make sense on Windows because there's no like Edge is just going to be installed on any machine we come across unless the EU does something about forcing Edge not to be. Um, so
I know we kind of informally decided we were going to punt this and make it part of patching.
or effectively make patching a dependency of adding
Right.
the Edge FMA back.
So does
Uh,
that means patching can't launch until we get all these FMAs in?
no. Like this is
Now the
we
opposite in
need
this case,
patching
right? Yeah.
for
Right.
Edge. We do not need Edge for patching.
Okay, do not. So, like, what's the status of this ticket then, and what are we planning on doing? Are we punting it to the next sprint? Are we,
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if we close these and then open them later.
right,
These for
talking about what
dependencies.
or that?
Yeah.
Like, I think this is probably a product question as far as, or do you think it's your, like, it
I
sounds like,
think it's a product and process question of I don't think that closing them is the thing that makes sense here, just because there's not really metrics on how long
right,
a ticket sits in the queue, because we have
right,
2,200 issues and some of them have been there
right.
for a while. But
Well,
from a
with Feature Fest, if there's like a do not do, I guess we just take the product label off, right?
right,
But the thing is, we want to do these, right? I mean,
right, yeah,
it's not going to
that's
go
the thing.
away. Yeah, they're not going away. Much as you
Yeah,
would like them to
Yeah,
go
but
away.
even those, I mean, even Feature Fest is like it's not won't do, it's won't do right now,
But I
right?
mean, it's like, well, one of our yeah, but the thing is, one of our Q2 OKRs is like 70 apps,
Yeah.
right, in FMA. And I can't imagine that these aren't apps that people are going to want to have in those 70 apps. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like these are pretty
for
big.
Edge for Windows, people probably won't care
Okay,
because Windows is just going to auto update Edge and it's just going to be there.
okay,
But for the having table rows in the FMA add UI, Edge is relatively easy to add there, with the caveats of like, hey, uninstall is not going to work because you can't uninstall it, and like there are carve outs around like testing for this. But um, if we want, you know, number of apps plus one, this would be one way to do that. But the value to an actual IT admin is going to be pretty low.
okay. So we're speaking specifically about Edge as far as
Yes, very, very specifically about Edge.
okay.
Yeah.
The Office Suite stuff
It's an
is
edge
much higher
case.
value and much higher effort.
Okay. So the question is, should we remove this? As like it doesn't sound like we're getting much. It doesn't sound like we're gonna get much bang for the buck on this one. And to your point, if it's already being done as part of like the overarching Windows thing, like
I imagine we're gonna get more value out of other apps.
mhm.
I could be wrong and the customer might come along and say, hey, can you add Edge? And then we prioritize it differently, I think.
And Marco, do you have any further context on this, since I believe you had built out the initial list?
I think we didn't really, we just took some most popular kind of apps and then we just, okay, what browsers do we have that are popular, like Microsoft Edge, I guess, Mozilla, and then Google Chrome, I think.
Mhm.
So we had those on Mac originally.
Yep.
And then, yeah, I think it was easier decision for Mac because like it kind of just worked. We found like metadata on Homebrew and then we didn't
Right.
have these like issues as on Windows. And then on Windows, like we wanted to have the same apps. Basically, that was initial thought. And then I think, yeah, then you guys found this like Microsoft Office thing that like you need this whole kind of
Yeah.
CLI thing. And then, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So
And yeah,
I think
to
that's
complicate Edge even further, this is a good reminder for me. It's another Microsoft app that might need to be updated through Windows Update. And so I know we'll see.
But yeah, to the point that Haziel has made multiple times, this would be like if we included Safari as a fleet maintained app for Mac. Like, it doesn't actually make sense.
why is that? Like they have some approach to update those via profile or something like that?
Well, and also like it's baked into the OS.
Hmm.
So you're not going to have a Mac delivered without Safari. You're not going to have a Windows machine delivered without Edge, just like you're not going to have a Linux machine delivered without VI. Anyway,
I have my Windows VM. Speaking of like an update method, I have my Windows VM open because I've been using it recently. But like I use Edge on there, and they have like a big button on there that's like it's out of date. Please update. So I think that they have a pretty good mechanism. Like it looks, it's pretty loud about forcing me to update.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like if we can concentrate on other apps that would require our help, or
yeah,
well, like it seems like a better use of time in my opinion, from what I'm
Yeah.
hearing. But I feel
Yeah,
like Noah
absolutely.
should make the final. Yeah, I feel like Noah should make the final call on this one. But I'd be perfectly happy just removing this, for the record.
Cool.
So I made that comment. We will discuss this on Monday. Hopefully this will get taken out. And then as far as Teams and Word, what should we do with these tickets? And also, I guess,
So that falls under we need to do research. So we could do it one of two ways. We can fire off a new research story, which is kind of what we've done historically. But another thing we could do here, because we're kind of doing it elsewhere, is fire off a subtask that blocks the story.
okay.
At least for research, and bring that into the release board.
Okay. I can do that. I don't know what you mean by create subtask.
Yeah, that one's kind of that's specific to our team. It's from a process
So
perspective.
we've got the no issues yet down there. If you hit the plus, then
The sub issues.
no, not
oh,
sub issues
further
actually.
down.
Yeah.
Oh, no issues yet down here. Oh, this is
Yeah,
my
that one.
Yes.
task.
It's
Yeah.
it's an epic issue.
Oh wait, this is Edge. This is the wrong ticket. Wait, let me take it. That's annoying.
Are those gonna be in the same sprint, like research, subtask, and then kind of the rest
Yeah,
of the
that's
work, or no?
That is my
No.
next question.
Yeah, they would
That
be
sounds
staggered.
weird then.
No, yeah, unlikely. Yeah, so it's weird from a process perspective in that we're going to have something on the product board that has a subtask that goes onto the release board. So that's different for Fleet. So hopefully that doesn't confuse folks.
Well, I
but
mean-
our team knows what it means.
So in the
Yeah.
future, oh, sorry, go ahead, Marco.
No, I just want to say like I had similar situation now with, so we have basically air guitar story I'm working on this sprint, but we won't deliver that next sprint. This is like user enrollment for iOS and iPadOS basically, or macOS also. And then we have research story for next sprint. And that research story is just like story that engineering will take and look into what we designed, this air guitar, work on it, and then we have like real story after that. So like it's, I think, from product kind of way of looking at, and then like if you have CS that's looking into something, it's easier to understand what's going on. If you have some subtask, then you need to move whole story, and they might think, okay, they're working on this, but it's not really, it's just research. So I feel it's better to have separate.
I mean, the thing with like we call these stories like this can be developed in one sprint, and realistically the stories take 2 sprints. One of those sprints it's in products phase, and one of those sprints is actually deving things, and
I mean, it's too long if it's now 3 weeks, like you have design.
Yeah, I get the
and
concern.
research.
Yeah, if you pull a research task again, then you got to wait 3 weeks for that research task to get complete, and before you can even start designing on the results of that.
Yeah, you're right. I guess maybe it's because this is like, okay, add this app as FMA. We have kind of FMA already working. So this one that we had was bigger. So it's kind of changes a lot of things for user enrollment. So that's probably why it makes sense. But yeah, I don't know. I guess if SAP tasks worked so far, and if we don't have anything else hand booked, I don't know. Probably makes sense.
For teams in particular, the work that we are doing, so the reason that we pulled teams out was that we couldn't inventory it. We are Constantine, do your fixes with family stuff that allows us to inventory MSIXs, right?
Yes, the upgrade code. Yes. So there's two. There's package family name and upgrade code.
Yeah.
Upgrade code is for MSI applications.
Well,
So
so this Teams is MSIX though.
right. So the other one, the package family name.
Yeah.
So I have another pull request open. So there's 2.
Mhm.
That'll help us with MSIX applications and MSI applications.
Okay.
So
So
those will be covered in the next release of OS Query.
okay, so it sounds like this one is blocked on the MSIX support in OS Query. Once we have that,
Were you talking about Teams?
yes.
I think the other interesting thing about Teams is so Winget has the only Winget installer is MSIX, but a quote unquote bulk installer, which I believe is the MSI, does exist elsewhere, but we obviously can't get the or we have to think about how we're going to get the metadata for it. So that would be another reason to block this, to figure that out.
Let's see.
Or I guess it wouldn't block it, but it would be a larger ticket.
Right. And like that sounds like we know what we would need to do. It just winds up being a larger ticket versus we don't know what we need to do. We need to research it. I'm checking to see install. Okay, so Chocolatey has an EXE for Teams. So
This
like
might be one of those kind of researchy
we
prereqs. Yeah.
Like we could just spec this as like, find a source to pull this from. We know that Chocolatey is an option if nothing else is, and then just point it such that to Marco's concern of like having a research task that there's no way a research task on this is going to fit into the 467 sprint. We're too heavily loaded. So if we want the option of completing a Teams thing in one sprint, then we just point it high enough that it covers either adding Chocolatey import or adding finding some other source for this, and that gets done in a single sprint if we pull it in.
Yeah.
So we don't
So
have Chocolatey import today. It's just Winget.
Okay.
Okay.
It's Winget, but there are no server-side changes to Fleet that would be required in order to
Yeah.
add it.
I remember that, but yeah, we need to
Yeah, it would-
parse Chocolatey.
Yeah, it would just be adding Chocolatey ingester and the tooling around that.
I mean,
Cool.
the nice thing is if we do go the chocolatey route, it opens up that avenue for other things in the future, right? So
Yes.
Yeah.
theoretically, it could speed up future things.
Correct. Like if we are not happy with what we're seeing in Winget for something, and Chocolatey does have that something available in a format that we do want, we can
Mhm.
mix and match.
Right. And that's not going to be detrimental to our platform or future.
No, not at all. Like it is. We use Teams as an excuse to do that investment if we
Mhm.
want to,
Mhm.
and then from there we potentially expand out, or we find out that we're okay just pulling the MSIX,
Mhm.
in which case we've added MSIX support for fleet maintained apps, which is also a good thing.
I think at
It's just a matter of
some point we'll need all of them, like MSIX. There's many apps I think that use that. It
yeah.
makes sense.
Right.
And just quick question, like, do you know if they sold Microsoft Office in Chocolatey or they use this like CLI tool as well?
Yeah, I think Chocolatey is the same case where they deploy they let you install they have a recipe for Office deployment tool, which is the tool that installs all the other things. The other, and this is going to be the case. Actually, I need to go back and check the macOS side because I know with Office in general, it's kind of breaking our pattern of one installer to one app rule or assumption that we generally make. It's one installer that installs many apps. We have an outstanding bug for that too, so we'll have to figure something out on that front.
Mhm.
And I'm looking at Chocolatey, and yeah, it's like Office Pro Plus, Office whatever. There are not separate packages for Word and Excel.
Oh.
So like
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time looking into this, but I wasn't able to find like separate installers for those tools. So
yeah. So the question at that point is like, and this is probably another thing where we like not only need research, but we need to actually talk this through in a product context of, are we dead set? Like, yes, for macOS, you have separate homebrew packages. For Windows, you don't. Do we want to have for that fleet maintained apps add UI? Do we want to split those out into separate packages for Windows? Or can we take the much easier path of just saying like it's Office, here you go?
Oh, wait, right now you're talking about Word and Excel. You're not talking about.
Yes, this is not Teams at all. Sorry.
Okay. So for Teams, this is basically the comment I'm going to make. And then do we want to move this to user story review, or do we have other conversations that we want to do? Tim, I guess. Like, are we cool moving this to user story review after this? Given the fact that it'll be pointed to do all this other stuff?
Wait, did we come to a conclusion here on what the scope here is? Do we want to use MSIX?
I think that the scope on this winds up being an implementation detail. Because it's going to be either the scope of MSIX of making sure that that works, or the scope of Chocolatey and making sure that that works. And that can be handled in estimation.
Yeah, and this ticket's gonna take that hit, right?
Like versus having a 1 or 2 point research task one sprint and then implementation the next sprint
Mm-hmm.
to do the same work.
Probably it's worth waiting, like what do we get with MSIX? What do we get with Chocolatey? And like what's effort for MSIX, what's effort for Chocolatey? Maybe if we get more apps that we are kind of aiming in the like recent future, maybe it's worth having Chocolatey over MSIX. But yeah, I think probably it's worth waiting that and then making a decision.
Wait, so he's saying that we wanted research ticket now, Marco?
I guess this could be like also, I don't know, Eugene, like product thing where basically like no, we could decide for either MSIX or Chocolatey, but like from what's better for the future, like what apps are kind of next. Probably I would chat with Noah and then say, okay, if MSIX, like we have probably these apps you can search through Winget and see, okay, which of them have this like MSIX extension. And like, okay, if that cover like many good apps that we kind of see that we'll need in the future, I would go for it. And if it's easier to implement as well, like, so I would just wait, like, what do we get for each of them and like what's effort probably, like, or just some ballpark effort if someone like, I don't know, for MSIX, and then what would be for Chocolatey.
I
mean,
think the
that-
customer is
that-
going to have an opinion here too on what they would, not so much on the Chocolatey front, but what kind of installer they prefer here. Maybe maybe there's an
so-
aversion to MSIX because it's all user based.
Just time check, we're 3 minutes over.
Yeah,
Hmm.
we'll have to pick this up.
Okay, all right, okay, so I won't do anything with this right now. All right.
All right, bye.
Cool, thanks.
Thanks.